Welcome home to the native, landing on a podcast space destined for greatness. 60 minutes or so hit, not too long for the grave shift. High level combo, politics in a way that you can taste it, then digest it. Politics touches you even if you don't touch it, so get invested. Cross the T's and dot the I's, Gillum back to get 'em, stand on business with Rye. You could have been anywhere, but you chose us. Native Land Podcast, the brand that you can trust. Yes.
Welcome home, y'all.
Welcome home.
Here. We are live from Temple University. We are at the Anti-Racism Center, and we are a little late because what had happened was
Angela could not put the bread down at the restaurant.
Wow.
Oh, shade.
Hi.
Shade.
You guys don't believe that. Apparently someone has been feeding or eating off of misinformation and has suffered from these problems themselves. Yes, that's truly alternative facts. We were late because one of us is directionally challenged, and we were given directions to the other side of campus. So Temple, we thank y'all for being very patient with us. We did follow the address, but you know.
We made it.
We did.
And we're in the Anti-Racist Center. Exactly.
And it says freedom now. Y'all see that?
Freedom now. Have you guys resolved racism yet here? Okay, we're waiting.
Yes. Well, we do want to shout out Timothy Welbeck, who is the director of the Anti-Racism Center.
Who helped us get here, Timothy.
Not only that, he came to get us from outside.
Literally.
We were lost, and carried the boxes. We were lost, but now we're found.
But more importantly, we're on the eve of what I believe will be a historic event tomorrow if we do our black job.
Yeah.
And if you're not black, you do
white job.
a job on behalf of black people, on behalf of democracy, on behalf of the country, and we vote. How do y'all feel about tomorrow? Everybody feeling like
y'all feel good? I don't know. That wasn't as enthusiastic. How y'all feeling?
Y'all feel all right?
Okay, we gotta do something about it because I feel good and I want to be around other people who feel good. And if you watching these polls, one say one thing and in 5 minutes and say something else,
and
all we gotta worry about
none of them, so it doesn't matter.
I don't. All we need to do is do what we need to do. And if you arrive with 5, like Andrew always reminds us, and bring people to vote, I truly believe by sheer will of us that this country, we have been trying to bend this country to our will for 400 years, and we know what happens to things that don't bend, right? So tomorrow, I believe we will elect Vice President Kamala Harris to President of the United States.
Here.
Well,
I feel good. How you feel?
I feel great. Our podcasting godfather is here with us.
Chris Morrow?
Yes, but he's not in the room because guess what? He's lost too. So that's what I was trying to address. But we have a really jam-packed show for y'all. And because we will be... Oh, hi, Chris.
Chris Morrow has made it.
What's up, Chris?
Did I scare you?
Chris Morrow is the founder of Reason Choice Media and known as the Podfather, the podcasting godfather.
Wave at everybody, Chris. We know you don't like people, but wave at them anyway.
Chris Morrow, Angela Rye, and Charlemagne the God founded Reason Choice Media, which is the banner in which we get to operate under at iHeart Radio. So,
are you gonna apologize?
Good to have you.
Popping me?
No, you're just dramatic, and so
wow.
you're being on display. Wow. Be on display.
Wow.
Right. We do have a good show though today. Some great voices that you all will get to hear from. And one of the things that I think we love about the live shows is that it gives us an opportunity to hear directly from you. So we have a roaming mic, is that right, in the room?
Yes, we do. And we also have guests. We're going to welcome to our conversation today from Temple University's Black Law Students Association, Sonya-Kay Johnson.
All right.
Will join us. Hello.
Hi.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you guys?
You gonna welcome us? We say welcome home, y'all, at the beginning of our podcast. You gonna welcome us back?
Welcome home?
Yeah.
All right.
You on air, girl. We gotta have some enthusiasm. Okay. How you feel about tomorrow?
I'm definitely a little nervous. I will say that. I hope everybody made their right choices, but you know, it's a crucial election. I think it's important for everybody to get out and vote. We only got 1 day left, and yeah.
Yeah. Do you feel like we're gonna pull it off?
I think we're gonna pull it off.
Yeah.
I think.
And you're president of the National Law Students Association?
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
Here at Temple, and how many many of your members are here with us?
Currently, all of our e-board is here. They're right there.
All right, welcome e-board.
Shout out to my boss of fam. I love to see it. Love to see it. So we're also, at this time, we're going to keep you on with us, Sonya, but we're also going to recognize and welcome the Executive Director and CEO of the National Black Justice Coalition, our dear brother, Dr. David John.
David.
And also,
David.
the Vice President of Philadelphia Black Pride, Jacen Bowman. And I know y'all have seen these videos. Jacen has been hitting these streets hard for Harris. He has been making sure that the community is running these streets and getting into the voting booth. So welcome to both of you, David and Jacen.
Welcome to Philadelphia.
Thank you.
Welcome home. Now, your name is pronounced David John. We've known David a long, long time and have known his work a long, long time. How do you feel about tomorrow?
I'm excited. The history of black people is that we thrive in spite of. So as long as white people do their white job, we should be all right.
Yeah. Well, do you think they will, specifically white women, do you think, because that's where this race hinges a lot.
Yeah, I don't know. Jacen and I were actually just discussing this. I don't trust white people. We have lots of reasons not to.
Right.
But what did hurt me is that I got off the train in Philadelphia a half hour ago, a little bit longer. Traffic was a mess. And there was a little white girl who ran from across the parking lot structure to say hello to me. And you know when little white girls run at you, you don't really know I'm 6'5", black man in America. It could be questionable in spite of the fact that I taught elementary school. But she said to me that she loved my sweater. And then right after her mom came over and said, I really appreciate what you're doing. And I thought to myself, 4 years ago, I don't recall a white person doing anything similar, right? And so in a world where there have been white women for, lots of talk around white women who have been modeling their work after black women that we know and love, like Jotika Edie and Christina Q and Win with Black Women, I've not really seen white women show up in the way in which some of them are publicly. And so my hope is that they've been talking to their friends in their group chats and their book clubs and that they do their white job.
If you guys could call, so the election is tomorrow night, but if you could call it, how would you call it and by how much? Like who's winning and by how much and why?
I would say that Kamala wins by 283 electoral votes. I think that it's going to be close. I do think that Trump is going to try to be.
She's going to win 283 elections.
Yeah, 200 elected. Yeah. I don't think that Trump is winning this. I don't foresee that happening. And like, I've been on the ground knocking doors, virtual phone banking, having community engagement events, especially with the black and brown queer community here in the city of Philadelphia. And I know everybody is fired up about Kamala. Fired up. I will say that they kind of like waited a little too long to activate these communities, but they were definitely fired up. So I think that she's going to win, but I do think that it's going to be close. Because what's concerning me is a lot of the suburbs and a lot of, the other people that are really like pro-Trump. It really amazes me that no matter what this man says, he can be disrespectful to black women. He could be disrespectful to white women. He could be disrespectful to immigrants. He can say that we're eating our cats and dogs. I mean, this man has no bounds. And the other day I saw him actually giving oral to a microphone. So, I mean, even no matter what he does, they are still, I'm voting for Trump, which is crazy to me. But here we are.
David Johns, what you calling?
I would double tap that on Instagram. Yeah, or I still call it Twitter in spite of the fact that that petulant child is trying to wreck it. And I think similarly, I worry most about people who have bought into the misinformation and disinformation, people who are not actually paying attention to what's available and who simply are not being honest. I'd rather have a black man tell me that he's a misogynist or doesn't believe that a woman can lead than to tell me that he believes that Trump has a better plan for fill in the blank. That nigga ain't got no plans for nothing. And so part of this is I'd just rather us be honest about where we are so that we don't have to do the guessing or worry about things like the Bradley effect and all of these things that are coming up at this hour.
But in the city of Philadelphia, what I noticed, we were doing a lot of barbershop canvassing. And though there are some black men that were in barbershops that, are not really sold on Kamala because of the misinformation about, how many black men she locked up for marijuana charges. I've noticed that a lot of black men that I've had conversations with, they just don't vote. So they say, oh, I'm voting for Trump, but they not voting at all. So it ain't even about them saying that they're going to vote for Trump, because even we just saw Waka Flocka, somebody just outed him on Instagram and showed that he has never voted in an election at all, but yet he's endorsing Trump. He probably ain't going to vote. So stuff like that is concerning, because I think a lot of people have this messaging out there. They're like, oh, I'm voting for Trump, but we don't want the couch to win neither. So if you're watching this at home, it is your civic duty to get off the couch and make sure that you get out to vote tomorrow morning. In the state of Pennsylvania, the polls open at 7 a.m. They don't close until 8 p.m. Even if you're in line at 8 p.m., stay in line. Make sure that your vote counts, because like we've been doing all this work, we've been having all these conversations. It cannot go in vain tomorrow.
Let me ask this, because you brought up barbershops, Jacen. So I might at this point be more triggered by the barbershop than Tiffany, and that's hard. I am trying to understand, like, why don't we know where else black people go? There has been so much, like, there has been content shot at barbershop after barbershop on both sides of the aisle. It's driving me nuts.
Well, you know why? A lot of toxic conversations happen in the barbershop. Like, and that's just the truth. And as a queer man in the city of Philadelphia, I remember when I used to go to the barbershop, I would have to sit through all these conversations.
You look like you went today. I want to know what they said today, because you got that clean line. Y'all see that line? That line is clean.
It's funny. I went yesterday, and me and my barber have been having an argument because he actually supports Trump. So in them conversations,
and you gave him your money.
Well, I mean, like, he does his job. Isn't that sad? He does his black job. And look, trying to find somebody to cut my hair is like hard, but I think he's trolling me too.
Divest.
He's trolling me. I really do think that he's trolling me. I don't think that he's going for Donald Trump, because he does have, like, you know, black votes and Kamala for Harris on, like, all the merging in the barbershop. He's just trolling me. But I think a lot of those conversations happen in a barbershop because that's the safe space where black men are able to kind of like be untucked and untamed. So they're able to go in the barbershop and have these conversations that are crazy. I mean, y'all would be surprised. How many of y'all go to black barbershops in this room? I know. And how many crazy conversations have y'all heard in barbershops? Like, let's speak truth to power here.
Barbershop not the only place y'all have these crazy conversations. Y'all have
I think barbershops, though, are probably one of the few places where black men, regardless of what their professions are, regardless of their socioeconomics, it kind of is, it's a convergence of black men from various parts of society. And so unless you were going, you know, into a black business where everybody who works there is African American, there's probably few places you can get that kind of strata of black folks in one place. I think beauty salons are similarly situated.
Agreed.
Now it takes, you know,
y'all gotta cut the light
7-8
back
hours.
on. I'm paranoid today. We cut the light
We should be
back
paranoid
on.
every day. We know our history. Keep our hands out my pockets.
I think what Andrew is saying, though, raises a good point, because regardless of your socioeconomic status, that is a place where you can get various aspects of conversation. I think the point we're saying is that that's not the only place. But I'm curious, and I want to ask you guys this, because we've been on tour, we've done a lot of shows, and when we were in Atlanta, it was a similar conversation about somebody who had been going to barbershops, and he talked about why some black men felt disillusioned with the Democratic Party. One of the things he said is because there is a significant number of black men who feel like the Democratic Party has a specific LGBTQ agenda. Now, I'm not a fan of taking tools of the oppressor and applying them within our community. It breaks my heart when I hear that. So without I try not to judge either. Like, I try to be an open space. I want to listen more than I speak. What would you say to men who feel that way? You're giving me a look like you're about to say, I'm going to go to Jay first, because I don't know what David about to say. You go first.
So the biggest problem that I have with that rhetoric, especially that, is that I think that when they look at us, I know I have pretty privilege, and I recognize my pretty privilege, because a lot of times I'm in these spaces with black men that are macho man. So when they see somebody that's black and gay, they don't look at us the same. So I think they fail to realize that black trans men's issues are black men's issues. Black gay men's issues are black men's issues. So we're not invited to the conversation because they deem us less than because of our feminine facing, you know, gestures or attitude or how we carry ourselves. It's not my fault that there's an ordained light over top of me, and when I walk into a space, I own it. That's your problem, that you have an issue with my sexuality being so face forward. And I think that is ultimately the biggest problem, because even here in the city, I was so thankful that Isaiah Thomas had, you know, put me as the co-chair for Philadelphia Black Men for Harris. And, like this, I was so thankful that he actually put me as the co-chair for Philadelphia Black Men for Harris. And as a black queer person, to be in that space was great because I had a voice at the table with the men that are deciding things that are happening for black men. But I also talk to my electeds and I let them know, like, hey, this is great that I'm here, but we also got to include black trans men. We also got to include other black gay men in the conversation too, and invite them, because a lot of times we don't feel welcome to the space.
What do you say, Dave?
Yeah, let me first ask all of us to give Jacen a round of applause. It's not just Jacen, but there are members of our community who identify as queer, trans, or gender expansive who have always been doing this work, who often don't get platforms like this, and so I want us to celebrate and acknowledge them. I would, if I'm being thoughtful, step back and say, first, let's celebrate what Fannie Lou Hamer taught us, which is that none of us are free until all of us are free. The second thing I would say is that we collectively should engage in white supremacy rehab. My queerness is African. My queerness is African. That you believe that me being a same gender loving person, because God made me perfectly in his image, that you believe that this is my desire to be closer to whiteness or to do anything that is anti-African is a lie from white supremacy hell. And we can debate about it. We can go biblically, we can talk ancestrally, but what I know is that this didn't just happen. And you can't get to freedom without me. It is because of black, queer, trans, and gender expansive people like Byron Rustin, who built the stage that many of our leaders stood on, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. included. It's because of folks like Marsha Pay No Mind Johnson that we have things like Pride Month. If it weren't for us living in the trenches on the front lines, we wouldn't be at this moment on this precipice of having a black woman who has been able to complete the race that Shirley Chisholm and so many others have started. And so I would offer a beseechment for them to go to therapy, to deal with their own shit, to engage in white supremacy rehab so that we can have a meaningful conversation about how we as a community get over together. I would then highlight data because sometimes we got to bring data to these conversations for people to be moved. So NBJC, the organization that I have the pleasure of quarterbacking, partner with 5 other national organizations that have queer leaders. And you'll hear me using 3 different terms, queer, trans, and gender expansive. I use gender expansive in the place of non-binary and non-conforming because those terms reinforce the very binary we're trying to get away from. But we partner with HRC, GLAAD, Family Equality, GLSEN, it wasn't GLAAD, it was GLSEN, and NCLR, the National Center for Lesbian Rights, to collect data to hear about what black people have to say about these issues. Because often it's our white colleagues and their white noise that have us talking about things that don't really affect us. 2 top lines. One is, when we think about what policy issues matter most to black people, when we account for the divisions that people suggest that exist because of our sexual identity, there's no daylight between the things that matter most to us. If I ask you all to imagine, like, what's the top 3 policy issues that matter to you, hold that list in your head. For the people we surveyed, number 1, healthcare. Number 2, the cost of every goddamn thing is too high. Healthcare, college, gas, whatever. Number 3, safety, justice, anti-blackness, to get the state to stop killing us. Those 3 things matter to people regardless of their sexual orientation, gender identity, or expression. But if you listen to the white noise, the white media, it's our sexuality that matters most. The second thing that we learned from our data is that black people believe that we should be doing more so that all of us can get free. And so if we lean into celebrating the beautiful diversity that has always existed in our community, again, turning down this white noise and engaging in white supremacy rehab, I think that we can come on the other side of some of these seemingly intractable discussions.
I want to, for a moment, just remind you all, we do have a floating mic. So if you have a question, raise your hand. Someone will walk the mic over to you. Okay, yes, sir. And while that mic is making its way to him, I think I lost my mic holder. We will get that to you in just a moment. But until we do, Sonya, I want to come back to you for a moment. The election, we didn't even finish the first question. This is how our panels go sometimes with, can you predict? David was like, I'm a double click that on Instagram, but he's not on Instagram. He's on this panel, but that's fine. So I want to just ask you what the role of lawyers will be in this election, what the role of young lawyers, black law students is in challenging whatever comes up. We know that there are folks who are eager to dismantle this democracy on the other side, questioning the legitimacy of these election results before they even come out. What role should young Black lawyers be playing in this election and in saving democracy?
I believe, especially for my organization personally, that we need to be informing our members, students. A lot of us are political science and criminal justice majors, and I feel like we have that knowledge to be able to educate the youth, as well as educating our the students at in the area we're located, because I think that
You're just take a step back and just think about your really important role as the president of BALSA here. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you all are reached out to by election protection efforts and that kind of thing. What role do you all what role do you see playing in making sure that democracy is preserved, which is what we've always done as Black attorneys in this space?
I believe it really is just educating as well as informing people, our members. I know I've spoken to a lot of people who are unsure of like where they stand in the election, and I feel like emphasizing on getting our research, just as simple as doing something as just searching up their policies and just talking. I know social media is another place where it can have a lot of misinformation, but I also think it can also be a crucial place to look for like information, because I think there are a lot of people that are showing that Trump isn't a good person. He has racist ideologies. He's disrespecting a lot of people. And I think that it's our job, especially in my organization, to just be educating our members, our students, anybody we can, really, our families. Because I know there's a lot of families where people don't see eye to eye, especially when it comes to elections. And I think that's just something that it's a conversation that we need to have and that we need to continue having. And yeah.
Perfect. Yes. Say your name and where you're from, please.
Hi, my name is Sonya-Kay. I'm a junior here at Temple University. I am a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, and I'm
They throwing up gang signs in here, y'all. I just want you to know that's what's going on.
David threw up the Kappa sign while he was talking, and then he threw up for the people.
I said colors and signs.
He threw up that office sign.
Oh, and now Quentin is in it. Quentin ain't even on the panel yet. They already in here. Carry on.
But all that success as a African American man that have a disability, why is it I hear talk about every issue in the Black community, but we don't talk about Black disabled issue in the African American community? I was told by a white teacher that college was not for me. Here I am in college with a high GPA. But what I don't understand, we talk about the Black vote, the Black woman vote, the Black LGBTQIA vote. What is amazing, we talk about all that, but we don't talk about the Black disabled vote, and people like myself are tired of being treated as second-class citizens in America. So if y'all can just talk about what we need to do as a community to uplift the Black disabled vote as well, so that more people like myself can be a success story. Yeah. Thank you for coming, and yes.
I love that question.
Tiffany, can I say something to that? Can I respond to that?
Sure.
Thank you. I'm trying to get emotional as I'm talking, because that's the reason why that this election is so important to me. My mother was born with spina bifida, which is a neurological disorder that affects the spine. She was not supposed to live past the age of 14. She went to Widener Memorial School, which is right behind Girls High, and I watched my mother learn how to walk. They told my mom that she was not going to have any children. I was her miracle baby. After me, she miscarried, after the miscarriage, she had my little brother, and I watched her as a disabled American fight and never give up and constantly make space to educate her 2 black sons, and she adopted 4 girls because she never had a girl. I was probably the closest one to it. But when you speak about, well, I probably was. But like hearing him say that is conversations that I had with my mom. So it like kind of like hit me to my core because like that's why like I do a lot of this work. And the reason why, you know, magnifying the disability of voices and magnifying black queer people is so important to me because I watched my mom as a single mother raising us. I was a latchkey kid. You know, I was afforded the opportunity to be a part of the segregation program, which bused us from the projects to the Northeast area of Philadelphia so we can have a quality education. You know, she sacrificed so many things for me. So like, thank you for that because you're absolutely right. We have to do better at making sure that we also speak to our disabled community as well.
If I could jump in these double Dutch ropes to add 2 points. One is that words matter. And in my previous intervention, I used the phrase, my queerness is African. Too often we conflate queerness to signal sexual minority status or LGBTQIA+, or ligabigatiggas or LGBTQI, whatever. But queerness refers to people who are not in a position of pejorative privilege or power. So most of us in this room are queer people. Women in a society that says men have privilege are queer. People with disabilities in a space where we don't acknowledge people without disabilities are privileged are queer. And it's often left to those of us who are queer to do exactly what you did, which is to lift up the consequences of white supremacy and what happens when we don't think about intersectionality. And so just to put a pin in this, I often remind folks that black people, because of how white supremacy works, are usually born with a disability. And if we live long enough, we're gonna grow into having one, right? And so this is why we need to be having conversations that center all of the important parts of who make us whole. Now my frustration becomes this in a practical 2-party system. Andrew and I used to have some of these debates about scarcity, right? Which is often it's the responsibility of the Democratic Party or Democratic representatives to speak to everybody because they're creating a large tent. And in this moment, we don't have people who have the same energy for whatever the policy issue that is important to them for the people on the other side of the aisle. And so in this moment, while there are still some people who are debating, are thinking about who they're gonna vote with, my hope is that people hear my heart when I say vote in ways that will allow us to be more strategic in getting closer to freedom, right? On the other side of this election being decided, we can go back and have the policy debates about what changes need to be made legislatively at every level of government to address the unique issues that we have. But what I know is that my black, queer, same-gender loving self cannot fathom surviving 4 years under a fascist, white supremacist regime. And I hope that is clear and isn't lost in us highlighting the need to do more with regard to intersectionality.
I love your question. So I want to speak specifically to the disability community because I think that's such a huge issue that you're 100% right gets overlooked. So specifically to being black and disabled, I would echo what David said, that there has to be a policy change at every level. And this was something that I think many of us in our different professional backgrounds have been confronted with and talked about. There was a social experiment that made its way around the socials where there was a white man who was blind and a black man who was blind. And they were walking on the streets of Florida and reached out for help. And every time somebody was willing to hold that white man's hand when most people recoiled at the black man extending his hand. So I think in terms of just the disability community as a whole, for sure, that's something that needs to be talked about. But we cannot talk about that without highlighting the wealth gap in this country and who gets resources. It was much like this during the Great Depression. We all were destitute, but there were white families who were prioritized in a way, and I imagine it's the same way for the black and disabled community. I commend you for raising the issue, and I would love, we'll make sure our research and producer and everything person, Lolo, follows up with you, because I would love to hear from you 3 issues that you would like to see raised on a national level, and we can certainly commit to talking about those on our platform.
That's great.
I would also say you are the best representative.
Yes.
I was compelled by everything you had to say. I felt your story. I applaud you not for having any sort of disability, but I applaud you for being willing to talk about what's important to you. And a lot of people shrink from that opportunity when they have it. And you didn't shrink at all. So one, you got to continue to be on the front lines. The other thought that I wanted to complete with something David said around the scarcity debate that we often have. And I answered the gentleman in Atlanta the same way when he brought up, we don't see heterosexual black men as a priority in the Democratic Party unless you're gay. And my point to him was, your beef isn't with black, queer, gay people. Your beef isn't with black women. Your beef isn't with any of those communities. That's what white supremacy has done. It has pitted us against each other through, again, a mentality of scarcity, that there's only so little, and that we all have to hoard as much of that little that exists on the table, when in fact, there are almost unlimited resources. If Donald Trump can give the top 1% of Americans a tax break that lands this country in its largest national debt in history, then why are we fighting about whether or not we can get resources to a community of disability to make sure that the laws and statutes that exist on the books are enforced at every level of government, from school boards to municipalities to counties to states, all the way up to the federal level? Because in the grand scheme of it, these are pennies in truth when you think about the scale of the federal government. So I guess if there was a point that we might take away on it is that we ought to be fighting for what we need. Yeah. Not for what they say is our little piece of the pie for us to negotiate over, because that's a distraction. The pie is all the pie, not the little piece that you have aggregated or separated or told us that we're supposed to fight over. But they keep us in the cycle of fighting each other over crumbs when the pie is much bigger than that, and the pie is all of ours. And I hope we shrink from competition between one another on whether your life ought to be protected as an LGBT person, whether laws ought to exist for black women that they should be able to work in a workplace, and while doing the same job that a man does as well, if not better, that you're still being paid 30 cents on a dollar in comparison. That's not right for any of us. And I think that's kind of, at least for me, where I feel like we ought to be turning our advocacy.
Jacen will offer you, oh, sorry.
No, I said I'm done.
Okay, Jacen will offer you closing remarks. We're going to wrap this panel. We're going to get to an audience question and bring on our next speaker.
I just want to kind of like go back to something Tiffany said really quickly in closing. When people always say like, oh, they're pushing this LGBTQ agenda down my throat. Oh, it's an agenda, it's an agenda. It's not an agenda. We are asking for equality. That is the agenda. That is the agenda, but the way they make it sound is almost as if like, oh, y'all keep trying to push this gayness down my throat, like not realizing that we just fighting for equality. Like, we are fighting for equal rights. We're fighting for representation. To me, the fight for equality is a civil rights movement. It's like, it's our rights. We need rights. It's period. And
not just period.
We're not just period. Not just period.
So, yeah, let's do it a different way, which is that children don't ask to be born.
Exactly.
Right? One of my spirit animals, a guy, not an animal, person, Asa Hilliard, a sociologist, said the following: I've never in my life met a child, in particular a black child, who is not a genius. And there's no secret to how we support them. We first acknowledge them as human, and we second support them with love. And the reality is that children, whether they are marked by race or ethnicity or sexual identity, often don't ask to be born and then don't consent to the politics that impact their lives in immeasurable ways. And today, we still are not talking enough about the fact that the suicide rate for black youth has doubled over the last 2 decades. That data study I mentioned, the most compelling statistic to move black people, was around the suicidality for black youth 13 through 21. So many of them are contemplating suicide because big-ass bullies are passing laws that are encouraging them to commit genocide. If you live in a space where you can't have access to life-saving and affirming care, where your parents can go to jail for loving on you, where your teachers can be arrested for teaching you that you are normal, that you are not a bastardization, that you deserve not just to live but to thrive. If those conditions are legislated, the result is genocide. And so if in this moment, you don't think that I should have the ability to have my nails painted as they always are done, or the ability to live as freely as our ancestors dreamed of our ability to do. I pray that you are compelled by children who didn't consent to any of this bullshit, who don't have the ability to vote. Do it for them.
Thank you so much. Jacen, Bowman, David John, Sonya, Madam President, we appreciate you. We're going to take a quick audience question. If you have your hands up, we'll take it. Yes, we see you. Let's pass that mic, Lolo. Say your name and where you're from. And while you are asking your question, we are going to bring up history, walking history. The Speaker of the Pennsylvania House of Representatives, our good friend Joanna McClinton, is here with us today. Yes, sir.
My name is Troy Newby Jr. I'm the Vice President of Black Law Student Association here at Temple. My question was relating back to what y'all just talked about how the disenfranchisement of the African Americans. It comes to Kamala Harris's plan towards black men, and how can she expand on that outside of like talking about the issues with healthcare for us, and only in those spaces you guys touched on a little bit earlier, how the barbershop's a place for us to decompress, and also things in which where they can allow us to get out loans, to open up more businesses, because as you just talked about, sir, the pie is not in our favor. So I was wondering how you guys think she can expand on that plan.
Well, one, thank you for the question, but the plan is actually really expansive. And I don't know if any of you all have another recollection, but I don't recall ever a major party candidate ever presenting an agenda for black men in the history of presidential races in the country. The fact that Kamala Harris was bold enough to step out there and say, I have an agenda, she didn't say for black women. She said, I have an agenda very specifically and particularly for black men. When Obama was asked what his agenda was for the black community, he said, my agenda for the black community is my agenda for the American people. And some people cringed, others were critical, but I don't think any of us would argue that we didn't benefit from having expanded health care, being able to see a doctor, many of us for the first time in our adulthood. But the truth is the reason why I think we need agendas that are particular to our needs is that black folks, particularly black men, are always at the worst end of almost every single statistic that we measure. So unless the entire society is going to be impacted at the same rate that we are, if their health data reflects the same statistics that ours do, if their education data, if their access to capital reflected that, that'd be one thing, but it doesn't. Ours is greater. It is almost more significant and has detrimental impacts on us and our livelihoods, which is why I think her agenda really pierced me as a study of history and also as a study and an example of courage, what she's offering as it relates to small business, not only loans, but loans to then be forgiven as grants. For folks to start new businesses is a big deal. The credit that she's willing to offer for families who have children who are between the ages of 0 and 5 who can't afford the cost of high quality child care. The fact that we're getting a larger inducement and an added tax incentive in order to make sure that our kids are ready by the age of 5 when they enter kindergarten to read and excel just like all other kids are. Her emphasis on health and men's health is of particular import. Our lifelines and lifespans are shorter because of the health outcomes and health implications. So what I loved about it is that I thought it was broad. Where we're really gonna have to come together is on helping her to get it done. You can imagine if there's never been a black agenda and a black male agenda before in this country, that the US Senate, which is 98 out of 100, or 98 out of 100 white.
No.
Or other than African American, only 2 blacks in the US Senate.
You only counting 2.
I'm sorry, there is a third. He's on the Republican. Yeah.
Oh, David is going to be a heckler. Now he off the panel. He's still yelling.
David is deleting any self-haters from the caucus. But that's where I think we're going to have to really cull our power together, is that I can already sense once we get past this moment of unity where Republicans and Democrats and white women and black women are supporting Kamala Harris, that the next story that will be written after she wins is a few months in, if they give her that long, this isn't the president that we thought we were getting. Yeah. She's too liberal. She's not working with Republicans. And it'll fall back to that same refrain that I think politics always falls back into. And we're going to have her back so that she can deliver on our promises. That's my real fear, It's not that we don't have an agenda. It's that it'll fall flat unless we're able to organize and insist that it happen.
So before we go to Madam Speaker, I just want to acknowledge 2 of our family members in the audience. Quentin James has joined us, one of our partners from Vote to Live, who will be joining the panel in a little bit. And I also want to recognize, I didn't say right now, Lolo, relax. She come around, I'm just acknowledging our family, I said. So she came around, not yet. We know, Madam Speaker is going to have the floor, but also Tamia Booker, I want you to stand. Stand. Y'all, I want you to know, I have known this sister. She's a brilliant strategist. I've known her since she worked in Hillary Clinton's office on the Senate side 20 years ago almost. And
I've known her since she was a student in college.
So here we go.
She's a rattler.
See, here we go. Okay, well, what else? Keep going.
She's bad. And she was previously the chief of staff for U.S. Senator Cory Booker.
Yes.
Out of New Jersey. Government of no relation. She does have a last name, Tamia Booker.
That's not her cousin. They did not violate ethics rules. But I wanted to shout her out. You trumped me, no pun intended, on how long you've known her. But I want you all to know that Tamia is not just a fan of the show and a supporter of the show, but of all of us, and wanted to make sure that we had some amazing guests on the show tonight. And that started with Madam Speaker. So I want to come to you. The question that they did not answer on the last panel was, what do you think who's going to win tomorrow, and what are the numbers, like electoral college votes? Who's winning and how many?
Well, good evening.
Good evening.
Welcome to Philly. So glad to see you all, and thank you to Dr. Val for coordinating this. We are so glad to be at the Center for Anti-Racism. My first visit. I come to North a lot, but I haven't been here, so I'm glad to be here this evening. Proud of the work that Temple is doing, along with my Villanova Law classmate, Tim Wellbrook. Thank you for your work here, Professor Tim. Thank you for your work. Who's winning? Kamala D. Harris is winning. What are the electoral college numbers? The winning number. You got to put the map up. I mean, I wasn't ready for that, Angela. You came in with a heavy hitter. I need to see the map. So
is she going to be right at 270? You think higher?
She's going to win. She's going to have at least 270.
Okay, is she winning Pennsylvania?
She's winning Pennsylvania.
All right now.
This is where the nation started, and we're sticking on the right side of history.
All right, I love it.
Does anybody else suspect that while the polling looks close, does anybody think that this may also be a blowaway on behalf of Kamala Harris? Do you think there may be
a blowout?
A blowaway, blowout, however you want to phrase it. I said a blowaway.
Andrew.
I love doing these
I also said 10 toes
That's
deep.
what you're doing with your hands to tip. Just so you know, next time we do a panel, you're sitting to the right side of Andrew, because I'm ducking like, woo.
I have a sneaky suspicion that she's going to blow past 270.
Yeah, I agree.
I think there are people here who are not being caught in the polling. I think there are states that we are counting out. And I think that there's a lot of secret voting that's happening where people are not necessarily disclosing who they're supporting. Yeah. And when the final analysis is done, I think we're going to pick up states that we didn't think were going to be in our column.
I want to say something about
Tiff,
that.
I'm sorry, because I'd never like to make us invisible. There is another sister that I should have recognized, and we ran in here. We had to go to the bathroom, wash our hands.
Who is it?
It was Dr. Valerie Harrison.
Yes,
Dr. Val. Thank you.
Please stand.
Thank you.
Please stand. I'm serious. So I talked about Tamia. Joanna, thank you for getting my life together. We would not be here today if it wasn't for you, Dr. Harrison. And of course, Mr. Tim got us together as well. He was directing me and Tiff down the hallway like we were his children.
We were literally running.
Literally.
So thank you.
You didn't stand up. I understand, but just wave at the people so they know. Dr. Valerie, we love you. We appreciate it. Sorry, Tiff.
Thank you for your work. I want to say something about this idea about voting in secret. What year are we in that women got to hide from their husbands? Not us, but the other women got to hide from their husbands who they're voting for.
I mean, the vote is secret.
Yeah, it's secret, but I don't need my husband's permission.
I didn't say that.
I think we got confused. Is it sacred or secret?
Right.
There's a difference between sacred and secret.
The dynamic that exists and it showed to me, it highlights the clear divide between us and them sometimes. If you feel like you can't stand in your own conviction, in your own home, and to me, there's an underlying envy in that I want the same power that my white man husband has. And so to get that power, I will preserve his power in hopes that one day he might extend it to me. That is the clear divide between us and them.
Do you think the Harris campaign was wrong to run the ads they did?
No, but I don't want you to start defending.
No,
Katie
I just want you to.
Oh, Lord. Katie and Karen.
I don't know if you've seen the last ads, but
Yes,
essentially, Julia Roberts is narrating this experience where two white women go into the polling place with their husbands to cast their ballots. They
it's like
look
a
at
wink.
each other and have this sort of wink nod experience where, like, girl, you know, yeah, I know. They then tell their husbands as they're leaving, you know, we did the right thing. We voted for Trump, da 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 da. And then there's an exchange that basically shows that they voted for Harris. And the right wing went mayhem over the last 72 hours over these ads.
I mean, preachers were tweeting. The
white men particularly, but there was also an ad that they ran with two white men going in to vote. They have a similar exchange, and both of them vote for Harris. However, there was no blowback about white men in secret deciding they would look at each other with a wink and a nod that, yeah, we couldn't go with that dude, we went with Harris. But with in the case of the women, there was intense blowback across Fox News and every other right-wing outlet. How dare?
I want us to be Handmaid's Tale so bad.
Well, I think we don't recognize how culturally, to your point, Tiffany, people are. People are culturally different, and depending on the type of community that you live in, I always say, you know, I live in West Philly. It's a big blue bastion of Democrats. There's some Republican neighbors, but I don't see them with MAGA hats on. And the same way I don't see my neighbors with MAGA hats on is the same way in other communities, people don't have on a Harris Wall shirt tonight and a big button that says voting is my black job. But that's okay, because when you go into the ballot, it is both sacred and secret. And if it's both sacred and secret, you shouldn't have to advertise, because if you are going to run into something at work or at your place of worship, you'd rather avoid. So you're not going to tell everybody this is where I am and this is where I line, because then the questions start. Oh, what about this? What about this? Are you saying you agree with everything that this person and this candidate is for? Because the same way somebody told me, I was at an event yesterday, I'm for you, but I'm voting for the other guy. I said, well, you know he's not for you. He's not going to tell your union that you should go on strike. He's not going to tell mega corporation X that they should pay you fairly. He's never going to stand in the gap for you. So how could you not be with her? And he said something to be about an open primary. I said, you sure that's it? You sure you're not voting for her because of a primary? You sure that's the issue? That's the reason? So it's different depending on where you're from and where you live. And I was on an interview last week with a group of women from all across the nation. Oregon, Michigan, they're leaders in their state houses and Senate. And we all talked about how there are some women who do not talk openly about being tired of the 45th president and his nonsense. And being tired of it means that they're not voting for him again, even if they did in 16 and 20.
I want to go to, you can ask your question, but I want to bring up Quentin James, who's going to join us now from Vote to Live. Also, he's the founder and president of Collective PAC. Give our brother a round of applause.
Hi, Quentin.
And our partner.
Welcome home.
And we also have Gabrielle Reed, who's the president of Black Girls Vote here at Temple University.
All right.
Joining the panel. Tiff, you were about to ask a question.
Okay. I'll tell you later. Anyway, right.
Answer it and put it on the phone. Answer it, put it on the phone.
Okay. Sorry. We're going to get in trouble with Andrew.
God.
Can we say? We can't say. No?
My phone was ringing and it read Ron DeSantis on the.
Give me the phone number. Let me call real quick. Let me call the number real quick back on the podcast.
Please. Anyway, Ron DeSantis was calling him. Anyway, I have a question for you. But that's a distracting thing. You show me Ron DeSantis calling you. But anyway, I have a question.
I feel like
for you.
we should focus group the audience.
I agree.
Okay.
The young man who asked about Vice President Harris's plan. I think this is a great question for you, Madam Speaker, because what I was struck by when I heard your question is something that I think we assume a lot of people just understand how government works. I assume you understand, but a lot of people out there don't. And some people think that President-elect Harris is also State Rep Harris, is also City Councilwoman Harris, is also School Board President Harris. And so I would love for you to punctuate the role of state and local government as it relates to getting the president's agenda done while we discuss calling Ron DeSantis Maurice back on the side.
Well, while y'all call him, we're going to have this conversation. And many times, even when people decide that they don't vote, not interested in voting, it's because they think that one official, the mayor is supposed to solve every problem. Social Security, now that's a federal benefit. Unemployment, now that's a state benefit. But we think, well, I voted for this woman for mayor. Why hasn't everything been fixed immediately? So our president-elect Harris will have to have a Congress that is willing to work with her to change policies. The number of high school town halls I had in September getting students to register to vote who said, oh no, the last president gave my mom a check. No, it was the majority leader in the Senate, who at the time was Chuck Schumer, and it was Madam Speaker in Washington, D.C., Ms. Pelosi, that worked together to get your parents some benefits during the pandemic. Now, for whatever reason, the former president didn't let the secretary from Treasury sign it. He decided he wanted his name on it. So now people thinking that he was able to give them some money. He didn't give anybody anything. It took action from the lawmakers to do it. And in Harrisburg, the things that we oversee are paying for many public benefits, like public education in Pennsylvania. That's a big bill we have. I was proud in our last budget to have the biggest investment, thanks to my colleagues, finally into public schools, making them fair. For so long in PA, you got to roll the dice on where you can afford to live, on what type of public school you can access. That's not all on Washington. A lot of that is on the state's responsibility. Similarly, we're in the city we live in, people talk about a pothole. Well, if it's a city road, we have to get downtown to get our city council members working on something like that. So all of us have a role to play, but people get disenchanted because they think that one time you voted for elected official Y, she was supposed to fix it all. And it doesn't work that way. It takes collaboration, partnership, even once you set an ambitious agenda.
Now, speaking of collaboration, I want to go to the collective. It is you all that creates history makers and helps to blaze trails for history makers like Madam Speaker right here. I want to talk to you briefly, Quentin, about what you see as our responsibility in the next 12 hours, right? What is our collective responsibility and call to action leading up to Election Day tomorrow?
Well, first, good evening. Thank you all for having us. Yes, give it up for Temple. You all sent a good brother by the name of Dr. Greg Carr to Howard University from this university. So he was my professor at Howard. I'm an African American Studies major. So thank you all for sending him to us. The next 12 hours, what we got to do? We got some good news, right? There's been a lot of talk around, are black men going to show up? Are black voters going to come out? What we know from the numbers, over 2.7 million black people have already voted early in the battleground states. Right, huge. Give yourselves a round of applause. Anybody already vote?
I voted.
People already voted? I voted? So what we know is that, for instance, in Georgia, 48% of all black women registered have already voted, right? In North Carolina, over 50% of black women have already voted, right? So we're heading towards a record-breaking turnout tomorrow, at least from black women. We got to make sure the gap isn't too big with black men. But what we need to do, we need to get everyone that we know out to the polls tomorrow. It is the job of the campaigns to convince them who to vote for. It is your job to try and get them to the polls. If you go on your phones, real quick, put your phones out, go to ridetovote.com. We are offering people $30 Uber vouchers to get to and from the polls tomorrow, all across Pennsylvania, all across Maryland and Texas and Wisconsin and Michigan and Georgia, North Carolina. Ridetovote.com. Put it on your social media, put it up there. We need people to go and vote. That's the biggest thing that we can do over the next 12 hours is turn our people out. I'm predicting that we're gonna have a really interesting surprise tomorrow.
What kind of surprise?
I think to Andrew's point, I think we're gonna see someone possibly get close to 300 electoral votes. We think about the polls, and all the polls that you see, they're tight. One person's ahead by a point or two. The thing that you don't think about is those polls, on average, are about, they say there's a margin of error of about 3 to 4 points. Yeah. And so imagine if some candidate has a little bit of a break, 3 or 4 points in every single state, that could lead to someone winning the majority of the swing states. I think that will be Vice President Harris. I predict she will also get about 55% of white women to support her tomorrow, which if she does, again, she is going to be the president-elect come Wednesday morning or Wednesday afternoon.
Quentin, just a quick follow-up, and really for all of you, our guests, the election day voting results were folks who will show up on tomorrow, Tuesday, and cast their ballots. And some states, obviously, we've got early voting windows. Early vote, typically, with the exception of 2020, favors Republicans, and we think this year will be similar. Do you anticipate that the early vote, for instance, in Georgia comes out, and those are the first numbers, and they show Donald Trump with a substantial lead in early vote? Do you think Donald Trump potentially goes out tomorrow, 8, 9 o'clock, and declares victory as the next president? Do you fear whether or not these, and this is something I think all of us should really reckon with, is that the data, when it comes in, is going to, the data as it comes in is going to look very different and skewed from point to point. The reason why they want one day of only voting with paper ballots and a result that evening is so that the votes that came in via absentee or early votes may or may not yet be factored into the numbers when they are initially announced, because these states all have transparency rules, and as the numbers are counted, they're to be posted and put out there. That way, when 11 o'clock and the numbers are looking more rounded and Kamala Harris has come back, then they stole it from us. And if you fear that, what do you think our best tactics are as a people to sort of calm that, and what responsibility do you think Kamala Harris may have to address that if Donald Trump preemptively declares victory?
Well, he's shown us that he will lie and he will try to steal an election. You know, when I was little, my granny said, don't ever tell a lie, because the next temptation will be to steal something that's not yours. He's tried to steal elections. He was on the phone asking the governor to find votes. It's like, well, when you find votes in Georgia, my friend, what's going to happen in Pennsylvania? Because you already lost. We have to recognize that people need to be patient. Democratic leaders from across the nation are going to start hitting press tomorrow night saying to count every vote, to let it be a free and fair election, which is a blessing that we should cherish, that we've always had in this nation, and that we're going to do that again and just pursue, shake off all ideas that anybody won yet, because it will not be clear. Since we've gone into the age where states allow for more ways for people to vote, it's not 2016. We don't know Tuesday night at midnight. Yeah. We just don't. Like the time I voted first time at LaSalle, 2000, don't y'all laugh, you weren't born. I was sitting on my bed, legs crossed, like, what's going on? What's happening? Who won? Because it was a time when you just would know, but that is not the time. And in Pennsylvania, in our state house, we sent a bill over to the Senate several months ago so that they could even just organize the mail-in ballots, not open them and vote them yet, but just organize and sort them. But they wouldn't, of course, do that because our state Senate is held by Republicans and they like the chaos.
Are you concerned about violence?
Absolutely. Absolutely concerned about it. And what people think about when we think about January the 6th, we think people from certain states came from the South to Washington, D.C., and not realizing that Pennsylvania had the highest number of people arrested and of course, nobody was really arrested that day. So they was going on, looking on footage, finding out who people were, found Pelosi's computer in Harrisburg with a 21-year-old. Yes, I'm very concerned about it, but we are being vigilant to ask people to be patient and most importantly, to recognize that the process will not be finished until it's finished. We've never had a stolen election, but we have had a former president that tried to throw our votes out.
Gabrielle, I'll come back to you, but Gabrielle, I want to get your prediction first. And then I want to hear from you on the very important role that Black girls, Black women are playing in this election. We know we're carrying this thing on our backs. How much further do we have to go?
I would say we have some ways to go. We're showing up, and the youth vote is definitely counting. As college students, we're out there, we're getting the votes, we're making sure people are registered to vote, and as Black women, we're showing up. Like, this is the first women president, and she just so happens to be Black. So it's one of those things where we all have to collectively come together and make sure that we are showing out and to ensure that everyone's not like, oh my goodness, it's a blowout, it's this. It's just remembering that a lot of the people who are voting in this election, this is our first time voting. Like, this is it for us. This is a big election and it's historic. So many college students are coming out. Those high school students who are old enough are coming out. So just remembering that it's not just the older generation going to the polls, it's us too. So just remembering that and having that piece of information with you, just stay calm and do your job. Like, go to the polls, take a friend to the polls, make sure your kids are going to the polls after school. Do your job and make sure people are going to vote, because at the end of the day, if you fall asleep tomorrow night and be like, I registered to vote and I voted, then we're all good. So I think that's what we really need to remember.
Thank you, Gabrielle. Quentin, you were going to say something.
Thank you for that. So yeah, I mean, I think, I say this cautiously, but I say this realistically. I think we should expect Donald Trump to come out tomorrow and say either he won or that the election is being rigged or stolen. That is their only defense. If you remember in 2020, there was one party calling for states to stop counting votes. That was not the Democratic Party, that was the Republican Party. And so we should expect that, but we should also be patient. So we've talked to leaders in the different states, and just a quick rundown. So tomorrow between 7 and 10 p.m. on election night, we should have most results from Georgia and North Carolina, but only partial results from Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan as well. We also may have near complete results from Virginia, Florida, Ohio, and Colorado. Between 10 p.m. and midnight, again, we should have most results from Georgia, North Carolina, and also possibly Michigan, but again, only partial results from Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Arizona, and then initial results from Nevada. Going from midnight to 6 a.m., this is Wednesday morning, y'all. Most results from Wisconsin and Michigan, but again, only partial results still from Pennsylvania, Arizona, and Nevada. So the idea that we're gonna know the winner tomorrow night is probably unlikely. This will be going on until Wednesday, and so remain patient.
Bet me some money.
Sorry?
Bet me some money.
Bet you some money?
Yes.
I mean, look, I said
Bet
that she's
you
going to
$5 good.
She's going to approach 300 electoral votes. I think if we can call Georgia and or North Carolina, then the game is over tomorrow by 11 o'clock, possibly.
So I think the one thing all of us should know is that, one, it has always taken 3 or 4 weeks for states to certify elections.
That's right.
Those calls are not typically made by any state until those certifications take place. Arizona in particular, Nevada, another one in particular, whose state laws are very specific about some of these things, will withhold, not withhold, they will do their due diligence, count votes as are necessary, and particularly those challenge ballots and states that are going to be close, those challenge ballots have to be cured, which requires a Republican and a Democrat sitting at the same table and agreeing that a voter's intent is a voter's intent and that a voter's signature belongs to the voter who cast that particular ballot. The reason why I think we may be at a more predictive place tomorrow night is there are certain counties and certain areas who will perform certain ways, and depending upon how those places perform here in Pennsylvania and Georgia and North Carolina, networks will begin to start projecting who they believe the winners are. I think an open question is whether or not how deep Fox News is in the tank for Donald Trump, and whether or not they will go contrary to the work of most news organizations and start declaring states and putting it in a column for Donald Trump that he hasn't rightly deserved yet. I don't fear that for Kamala Harris, because I think most networks are pretty cautious before they put a state in a column. But in addition to Donald Trump claiming victory, my concern is that some of the networks who, again, get out there before votes are certified, before elections are certified, they make a claim on a state, thereby creating even more tension and furor and the possibility, I think, for violence. It's hard when somebody says a state went for Donald Trump and then the next morning you woke up and it was taken from him. Well, it wasn't taken from him. All the votes weren't counted. Y'all jumped the gun.
Right.
Nobody's won that state yet. The vote hasn't been certified, but
I don't think Fox News will do that, simply because of the Dominion lawsuit.
They did, but
I
you
think
remember they did that.
They have a track record of being sued.
But their track record was about lying on a certain company, and that company faking or manipulating the vote count.
Correct.
Declaring a winner isn't the same thing as besmirching a company's name and having to pay liability.
Then you get into First Amendment issues, so that the same danger of lawsuits doesn't necessarily apply. I would not be so confident about Fox News doing that.
Never, not once. But here's what I am confident about. Time is ticking. This panel has been amazing. And we are going to give them a round of applause. For those of you watching at home, know that Q James will join us again tomorrow at election night, live from Howard University, the Mecca. But, please give a round of applause again to our Madam Speaker, Joanna McClinton.
Thank you, Madam
Quentin James,
Speaker.
and Gabrielle Reed. Thank you for joining us.
Yes.
And next up, we have a Working Families Agenda. Our partner from Working Families Party, National Director Maurice Mitchell, Councilmember Kendra Brooks, and Councilmember Nicolas O'Rourke will now join us.
Nice.
Give them a round of applause as they come.
Yeah. What's up, man? Good to see you, Maurice.
We live on camera. Have a seat. We love you, Mo.
Okay. All right.
Want to make sure you get all your time.
Y'all, as we think about the threat of, again, election.
We really look like the praise team right now, though. Hold on. Look at this. We really do. We got the 10.
Who the director?
Okay, sorry. But I just, I got
Maurice.
We do.
You, Kirk Franklin. And we, everybody else. What responsibility do political parties that are not the majority parties, Democratic or Republican, as well as C3, C4 organizations who have been working on behalf of turning out voters, what responsibility do you all feel you have tomorrow and then the days after to ensure that we've got not just a fair election, but that we don't jump the gun and find ourselves in a situation where democracy really feels at stake and it becomes something physical? What responsibility do you all think you all have in that situation?
Our number one responsibility always is to tell the truth, right? That's our number one responsibility. And it's hard to know, and also, happy Election Day Eve, everybody. So we don't know what's going to happen, but we do know that Donald Trump and the MAGA movement will engage in some shenanigans, right? And I remember in 2020, I remember when at the convention center in Philadelphia, they were counting votes, and Rudy Giuliani wanted to come and hold a press conference in order to kind of drum up the Stop the Steal energy in Philly. But he don't know about Philly, right? And so, Nicolas and Kendra and a lot of the folks in the community turned that space into a party for democracy and shut that down, shut the Stop the Steal movement down in Philly. And instead, we basically celebrated our democracy. So to me, we have a duty to, when the dust is settled and the days and weeks after, we know that there's going to be a lot of noise, to be able to communicate to the people that we have influence over that we got us, that the processes of our democracy are fair, and that we need to make sure that every vote is counted.
Real. I appreciate you. I want to hear from the other two of you, but you gave an important example, and one that I just wanted to illuminate as well in Florida in 2000. And the Bush v. Gore scenario, it was outside groups, not necessarily political parties, but also staff who were flown in, bussed in to certain precincts where they knew that the vote count in those precincts where those ballots fully counted would result in they were largely black precincts. And I watched as many community groups and community leaders shrank from the moment of standing up for democracy because the other side was so violent, so loud, so agitating and antagonizing. And it's the reason why I wanted to know how you all's organizations are sort of prepared or thinking about that, because I don't think any of us can put it beyond the pale that should they show up at precincts and counting locations, that the votes they're going to want to shut down first will be amongst the folks who are estimated to vote almost 90% for their opponent, which means they'll be in black neighborhoods, younger college campuses, in an effort to shut down the ability to count every vote.
Oh, they're saying the quiet part out loud. They are saying what they plan on doing, right? They want to call the election even before we've counted all the votes, which is why it's important for us to understand the assignment.
I would just say that one of the things that we were trying to be intentional in doing in the midst of the lockdowns when the 2020 election was going forward was returning a sense of joy in the act of this whole election system. Actually, the whole movement, Joy to the Polls, was kind of birthed out of the party that was set up at that convention center to push back against the negative energy that many folks were feeling, all the anxiety that folks were dealing with in the midst of it all, and using joy as a resistance tactic and also to kind of buoy the spirit in pushing back. It also continues to be something that folks do. It's now kind of spread. You now have DJ at the polls. You have all these other means by which people are bringing celebration and a spirit of festivity to that space, and it diffuses a bit some of the tension that happens at that space. And so, as you have seen, it now has kind of gone national or what have you, and that's one of the things that we continue to prioritize in this work.
And I just want to add that we organize, like we are all organizers. So we organize not just at election time. This is an ongoing process. So whatever happens on election day, we still have a commitment to our community to build and grow. Because the way we win election after election is by building this movement and growing our base. So our commitment is always going to be first to grassroots movement, our organizers and our communities to build and grow from every moment.
And that's the difference between a third-party movement that's actually on these streets versus third-party movements that parachute every 4 years with a
Let's talk about it.
Okay, let's.
I want to talk about it. So on that point, there are a lot of folks that hear wish lists and pie in the sky agendas from third-party candidates, and you guys are very serious about organizing all the way down ballot. Can you talk about what the role of the Working Families Party is in this election? Where do you all stand in the presidential election and then down ballot?
Sure. Well, the Working Families Party, and we've been around for 26 years, so every single election year, we're making close to 1,000 endorsements. This election year, we have 750, close to 750 endorsed candidates. That means that in California, we have 134 candidates that we've endorsed on the municipal level, on the state level, as well as the top of the ticket. In Georgia, in Pennsylvania. So we're concerned with the state house because that's where the laws get made, right? If you actually are serious about policies that will actually make a difference in your lives, then you have to be focused on where the laws get made in city councils, which is why I'm so proud that in the city of Philadelphia, it's a two-party city, Working Families and Democrats, right? Or in state houses or in Congress, which means you have to care about the down ballot races. And political parties, if you're to take them seriously, are not just about winning elections, they're about governing. And the real governing happens in those legislative bodies. So if you only hear a political party talk about their presidential candidate every 4 years, it might mean they're not serious about governing, right? And governing is actually how we deliver. And I'd love for Nick, you just got your first bill passed, right? And Kendra to talk about these concrete victories that they worked day and night with our coalition to pass through Philly City Council, because these are transformative.
Leader Brooks, you want to start first? Okay. Well, yeah. Well, thank you very much for saying that. I am pretty proud of our staff and our team who helped put together our first bill, passed with an overwhelming support from our colleagues, to ban algorithmic rental price fixing. We are in Philadelphia, every election cycle we're reminded over and over again that we're the poorest big city in the USA. About nearly 50%, some 40-some% of the residents of the city, meaning almost every other person you see, is a renter. And you already heard the folks up in New York talk about the rent being too damn high. It's too high here too. And so how do we govern in a way that protects tenants here in the city of Philadelphia? As the folks say, all politics is local. I heard someone say recently, if all politics are local, then all local politics is housing, because that's one of the material ways by which we're able to secure people and create safety and also build from there. So we're super proud to be able to go ahead and put forward something that's going to help materially protect the lives of almost half the city, or at least have shelter over their heads.
That's good. You're gonna say this?
No, I mean.
Okay, so I wanted to address this third party issue, but one more just to like double click on this and get even closer to the point. For the presidential candidate, you know, the options that you have,
Yes.
Did you all choose a candidate?
Yes, we did, and I want to tell you why.
Okay, I want to know who it is.
Okay.
Okay.
So the Working Families Party endorsed Kamala Harris and Tim Walz.
For all the third party candidates
Okay.
watching, did you hear that? Okay.
Okay. Yeah, and we're an independent. So I'm not a Democrat, right? I'm proudly an independent person who's building an independent third party from the ground up, right? So we're not Democrats in that sense. We're independents. We're building independent power. And like I said before, our job is to tell the truth. Building a serious third party in this country that has such a rigid two-party system is not easy.
Serious.
It is not easy. Look, Ross Perot couldn't do it with all of his money in 1992. It is not easy, but we've learned the art of doing it, right? And we have the receipts to prove that it can be done. Not just in this city, but now in 20 states around the country, we're building it. And we're securing concrete victories like we're talking about here. We could not see, based on the power that we currently had and we currently are building, a path for us to run our own person at the top of the ticket, number one, right? So being an organizer is being honest with your people about the power that you have and the power that you need, right?
And math, right?
Also, I mean, the other thing is that, you know, it's basic math. Yeah. It's basic math. The math does not math for an independent third party based on the current rules to win the Electoral College, 270 Electoral College votes to win the presidency. So also, we are in a historic moment where if the hate rally at MSG didn't let you know, we're dealing with a hate movement, a fascist movement, an authoritarian movement. And so that contrast couldn't be more clear for us. So this is a 5-alarm fire for our democracy. We as an independent third party understood what time it was. And we felt it was our duty to communicate to all the people that entrust in us their political decisions, to say with our full chest that we've endorsed Kamala Harris and Tim Walz so that we could have more space to do the organizing that we've been doing, right? Now, we don't believe that any politician is going to save us, right? Our belief is in our organizing and our people. And we believe in this binary choice that there's one choice that gives us more space to organize, and there's another choice that gives us less space. And it isn't theoretical. There's one side that's talking about deporting protesters. There's one side that's talking about rounding up their political opponents. And so it is actually for us not a hard decision, right? Which is why we don't shrink. We're clear. When we make endorsements, we say it with our full chest. And we could stand on 26 plus years of organizing and doing work on local communities to validate that when we say this, we mean it.
I want to stick with this third party issue because I think this is something that came up a lot this year, particularly around a lot of people when it was Joe Biden on the ticket. There were a lot of people who felt not enthusiastic about either person. We did an episode. I encourage you guys to all check it out. We did a full conversation on third party candidates and what that means. And I think we should have an intellectual conversation around third parties. A two-party system has not served our community, and arguably it has not served anyone. It has not served the country. And as we start to reimagine what democracy could and should look like, I don't think we should dismiss third parties like the work you're doing. It's important that you punctuate the point. It's taken 26 years to build this. The challenge is a lot of people who champion a third party, the presidential race is very seductive. But when you think about it, there's a plethora of third-party candidates who've been victorious across this country at the state and local level. That is where you can start to make a difference. So I don't want to discourage people who are out there who feel this way. We acknowledge that. Angela and I frequently say we are not mouthpieces for the Democratic Party. They don't call and ask us for too much because we are critical. We understand racism, like we've said, is a bipartisan challenge. But there is a pathway to victory for third-party candidates. So I think it's important, the story that you just told about the work that you do, that work happens at the grassroots level. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
I would also say we got to be honest about the limitations at the federal level, which is why I was honored to get the endorsement of the Working Families Party in Florida.
Say it with your full chest, Andrew.
This is the worst part about it, is that from the Constitution of the United States to the effectuating statutes and laws that have been passed ever since, they exist only to prop up the two-party system.
That's right.
Dollars come from the federal government to support the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. It finds every way possible under the laws and constructs that it's created to keep third parties out of the game, to ensure that your negotiation is always one between which one will create a better organizing environment for you rather than you setting the tone of what that organizing environment will be by being the party that wins. And so I think one of the things that I think we're all challenged to do is we reimagine the kind of government that would be reflective of us rather than of power structures, and power structures specifically that don't serve us, is how we can get serious about organizing at a level where we can then put people in positions from state legislative races to congressional races and on forward that will pass laws or at least uncouple the stranglehold that our current laws have to prop up only two political parties in America. Unless that system gets leveled, there's no chance at a third party competing and no amount of money will make the difference in that when the laws are on the books specifically to keep a third party out. You got to have many people in a state. You got to have so many votes from so many people in that particular congressional district, so on and so forth. And so I applaud what y'all are doing. It is the long work and it's the hard work, but we all have to be enlisted if we're serious about wanting to level the system as it exists today and truly deepening, I think, our investment in groups like Working Families Party.
We can't have a conversation about third parties without bringing on our dear brother and friend, Professor Marc Lamont Hill, who's here. Marc, I'm going to give you my seat, and I'm going to take the floater mic because I want you to be a part of this conversation, this panel. Give him a round of applause.
You don't want to know. He picked a day to have the accident of all accidents. So I spent the last hour running back and forth to the car, to the stove, to the car.
What happened with the baby?
Was it a blowout?
Blowout.
Oh, that kind of blowout.
Yeah, he fine. Yeah, we've been there.
Well, I wanted to bring Marc up for this moment for a couple of reasons. One is I think the biggest argument we've ever had is centered around 2016, and I think what is not fair is that although you've tried several times to articulate the nuance of your position, it's something that continues to come back. And I think that this year in particular, given all that's going on, given your advocacy around Gaza and your own experience there, it's a critical election and you've made a really significant choice about what you're going to do this year. And I'd love for you to talk about, what the considerations were and how you got there.
Yeah, and thank you for that. It's been a heck of a journey. And it's good to see everybody too. It's so good to see everybody. Most of y'all only see online, so it's good to be in person and community with everybody. I've been a Green Party member since I feel maybe 25 years now, and I remain one. A very proud Green Party member, despite my frustrations at times. And over that time, I have consistently, with one exception, voted Green. And the reason why I vote Green is because I do believe in the need for a third party. And I think I didn't hear what y'all were just talking about, but I heard the end of it. And I think we have to create the conditions for a third party. And I think that as long as we believe that there are there's only two options, and it's the lesser of two evils is our only option, and the evil is always going to be the outcome that we're going to get. And so we always have to be mindful of how we can push Democrats to the left, how we can imagine new political possibilities so we don't stay locked in the same frameworks. And so for me, that has meant voting green, not because I think Jill Stein was going to be president. You know, I don't know if I'd be happy. In fact, I would not be happy if Jill Stein were president as a practical matter. But I'd be happy if the Green Party were able to build and organize, and if we were able to get 5% of the vote, we would be able to get enough funding in order to have a more competitive race the next time around, not just for the presidency, which we ain't gonna win no time soon, but gubernatorial races, mayoralties, city councils, et cetera. So that's the logic of it for me. And I've always resisted the argument that, well, this election is different, because it ain't been an election yet that we haven't been told this one is different. It wasn't like, you know, they said, oh, don't vote cards, okay, Reagan will be fine. It wasn't like they said, oh, Daddy Bush will be fine, Bush will be fine, Trump. Every time the sky is falling, every time this is the worst threat to democracy we've ever seen, and therefore you have to vote Democrat. Now, the truth is Republicans keep getting worse. Yeah. And so it's not untrue that this is the worst threat, right? I would argue Trump is a worse threat than Bush, and Bush, maybe not a worse threat than Reagan, but in retrospect, but you get the point. Yep. So that's the backdrop to all of this. And so this election cycle, I was faced with the same challenging question that we argued about in 2016, and that was, what do you do when you're facing a Trump? And in 2016, my response was exactly what I had planned for, which was I voted green. I said that not because I thought Trump would be good, but because I believed that the context was right for us to really mount a resistance. Now, to be clear, even when I voted green in 2016, y'all know I live in Pennsylvania, I really was advocating Green Party voting in the 42 states that are not competitive. Because if you think of, because they always say you're wasting your vote if you vote green. You're wasting your vote if you vote anything in Mississippi or California or Texas other than the thing that's going to win. What I mean by waste is, if I'm a Republican voting in California, I'm not making a dent either.
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
I'm talking about at the level of president. I think down ballot is a whole different conversation. I'm only talking about the presidential election right now. Down ballot, I think we have to be very careful and very strategic, because Republicans have been strategic for decades, right? While we're thinking about the presidency, they're winning state houses, they're taking over, they're doing all the things necessary to ruin our lives in very meaningful day-to-day ways. So I'm not saying your vote doesn't matter. What I'm saying is that we could be strategic and still build a third party. For me, that meant vote trading and strategic balloting. So for example, if I'm in Pennsylvania, I might not vote green. In California, I would. And if you know somebody that's in that state, y'all can vote trade, right? There's ways to navigate it so that the Green Party gets its vote and we keep Trump out. What I said that entire time in 2016 was, we have to do whatever we can do to keep Trump out while simultaneously building a third party movement. Now, sometimes that message gets lost because all I ever see on the internet is a clip of me saying, we can afford to lose an election. We can, they say things that I wouldn't say in context. I never wanted Trump to be in there, and I did all I could to stop it. But they lost. And one more thing about that before I tell you what I'm going to do now. The election wasn't lost because of the Green Party. And I think that that's an unfair burden. I think it lets Democrats off the hook for not meeting our needs. I think it ignores the fact that the Clinton campaign in particular did not target the right states at the right time and the right demographics. No one is entitled to our vote. And also, if you look at the vote, also just to be nerdy about, if you look at the exit data, people who are voting green aren't voting Democrat next. Some of them are voting Trump next. Some of them are not voting at all next. Some of them are voting Communist Party next. Some of them are voting Socialist next. A lot of people are in the Green Party because they don't want to be part of the main system. So even if the Green Party doesn't run, Claudia de la Cruz would probably get their vote. And I know people who say, well, if I ain't voting for them, I'm voting Trump because I want to be outside the system, as if he's outside the system. So I don't accept any of that. This time around, I was faced with a very similar challenge, and I was faced with the realities of a genocide in Gaza. And as I stand in strong solidarity with Palestinian people, many of them have said genocide is a red line for them. It's a non-starter. They can't vote for anybody who is endorsing a genocide. Now, obviously, Kamala Harris is not the head of the Biden administration. Biden is the head of the Biden administration. And if she promised a different way, I think she could make a compelling argument. Unfortunately, much of what she has spoken about so far has suggested that it's the status quo. We support Israel's right to defend itself, which is really secret agent talk for, we're going to keep funding these weapons and these bombs. I have no reason to believe that the Harris administration is going to be different because no presidential administration has been largely different. So you have to tell me you're going to be different. I can't assume, We did that with too many other presidents. So then the question becomes, well, if that's the same, what do I do? And I would never tell a Palestinian not to stay home or not to vote third party. How dare I? Right? How dare I, in the midst of a genocide, say vote for the person who's literally funding or helping to fund your genocide? And whether it's Biden, whoever. Let's be clear, Trump would be worse. So that's one thing I also have to calculate is, despite what we're saying, Trump on stage said, the only thing I would do different is I'd finish the job. And we saw how Trump treated Palestinians as president, so we don't have to guess. He cut funds and did all these things we could talk about if we want to, but far more intensely than Biden did, and Biden's been terrible. So if I then make a vote right now, it would not be for a different policy outcome. It would be to send a message that genocide is unacceptable. And I'm down with anybody who wants to make that choice. But I believe right now, given what we've seen in the past, given the reality of what's going on in Gaza, and I do believe that more Palestinians would die under Trump than under Harris, even though I think too many will die under both. And in light of the fact that there are other things that I witnessed over the last 8 years that have broken my heart. My father died alone right down the street at 23rd and Spring Garden because we couldn't see him. You saw him. We went and visited him one night. We snuck in. I think, did I steal his Gatorade or leave him some Gatorade? I can't remember. But okay, he didn't need it. Black people got sugar. But after he left, but once COVID came, he was older. He was 90. But suddenly, because of the pandemic, he couldn't see anybody. He was isolated. And what does it mean to be in isolation inside of a nursing home, which became death camps all around this country, as did prisons?
Yep.
Now, that ain't Trump's fault, but Trump could have done some things different, like read the pandemic playbook.
Yep.
Not try to tell us the bleach will fix it or the sunlight will fix it. My sister died, likely of COVID, the day of my father's funeral. Jesus. But it's not personal for me. All of us lost people. Money, jobs, but more importantly, people. Those are preventable deaths against the backdrop of all this other stuff, against the backdrop of losing the Supreme Court and what the Chevron decision is going to mean, and basically giving the president the license to kill almost, and almost a kingdom. When I look at all of this and I see another Trump presidency, I don't believe that Trump is the boogeyman in the sense that the people can't defeat him. But the way to defeat Trump, not all presidents, not most presidents, but Trump at this juncture in history, I do think, is to do everything we can to vote him out. And for me, that means I'm going to pull the lever tomorrow morning for Kamala Harris, unless she says something real crazy tonight. Real crazy.
She not gonna do nothing crazy. She just gonna be down here with the Roots.
There you go. That's good enough.
That's good. You going down there?
Stay with
going
the
on down.
Now, if she with Drake.
No, now Drake. No, he's not like us. He's not like us, Marc. We're not.
Marc, I want to ask you about Gaza. We were talking about you a little at dinner tonight, and I fully understand. I think we all do what it's like to stand on your convictions, even if you're the only person standing there. And I think had you made the comments that you did today, it would be a completely different reception. It's always the hardest when you're the first to say it. And people don't always move with the courage of their convictions. When we expect lions or hyenas to be lions, and you have to accept at the end of the day, people are simply hyenas. That's an original Tiffany Cross quote.
I'm gonna steal that.
That's Andrew Gillum's quote. She's trying to be a plagiarizer.
But, I think a lot of people echo your concerns. And I breathed a sigh of relief after you carried us through that. I'm like, who did he vote for? I'm so happy that you did. But I'm torn. As a Black woman, I feel so overcome with joy and pride when I pulled that lever, when I clicked her name. And when I see her become president, I will just explode. There is also my humanity. And I think about the 50,000 plus, because I don't believe the numbers that we're putting out. When you look at Western media, it's a very different story than what you see elsewhere. 50,000 people, and we always say women and children, but men too, like their lives matter too. And when we see the devastation, the raw devastation, and that we are supporting a government that is funding that, what would you say to people who feel so incredibly torn by our humanity and also the history of this moment?
I'm gonna tell you, not to appeal to authority, which would be a logical fallacy, university students, but I'm gonna tell you what Angela Davis told me. Because I asked that, she's been on this struggle a lot longer than I have, even on this issue. And we were together maybe a month ago in Chicago, and we talked about it. And what she said to me is, and it's not the first time someone has said this, but it hit me differently this time, is that we are voting for the person who will give us the most terrain to fight.
Yeah, that's what it is.
It's really that simple. Yep. I know what it's like to fight what's happening in Palestine under Trump. The moving the embassy, the U.S. embassy to Jerusalem is something that was actually signed under Clinton in the 90s, in 96, I believe, 95. But every president, Republican and Democrat, has punted on it. They just sign a waiver so they don't have to actually move it because nobody really wants to smoke. It was a classic Clinton move, get the credit for it, but then don't do it. So everybody happy. And every president has ignored it. Trump said, no, I ain't signing nothing. Move the embassy, which is it's illegal and it's a provocation. Yeah. UNRWA is the source of food, clothing, and shelter for most Palestinians. He cut all U.S. funds to UNRWA he didn't even pretend to give a reason. There's a cruelty to Trump that doesn't even allow him to be pushed or moved. I believe, I'm gonna even say I know, that Kamala Harris's decision about the vice presidential choice was at least taking into consideration the voices of people on the ground who, especially in this state, who expressed their concerns about Josh Shapiro. I don't know what she was gonna do, I'm not in her head, but I do know that they were listening. It's not much to just say we listen, but I do think it matters. I do think that a more humane position on Palestine matters, not because I think we're gonna vote our way or that the US is gonna get religion and change on Israel-Palestine right away, but it is the difference between somebody living and somebody dying. And so what I say is, if you think, I mean, what Bobby Womack say? If you think you're lonely now, wait until tonight. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's bad, but wait, elect Trump and see what it's gonna be, even for the people who are the most vulnerable.
We I see the hands. We're gonna take a quick question. There are two questions. We're gonna take this sister here first in the burgundy. That's the color this fall, by the way. Shout out to the burgundy. I'm gonna make sure I get y'all's predictions, and then we're gonna wrap because apparently we're gonna run to this train that now looks like it's on time. Yeah, I know.
Bye, y'all. I'm gonna meet y'all at the train station.
That is so rude. You can't take the car. We share a car. We carpooling to save. Yes, ma'am. Oh, you needed my mic. I'm sorry.
We got two. We'll get you because he want to have a question too. Yeah.
Say your name, where you're from.
Thank you so much. Hi, I'm Genesis. I'm a senior here at Temple University, a journalism major, Africology, and African American Studies minor. I'm also the co-president and editor-in-chief of Her Campus Temple, if anybody wants to read. I had a question about mobilizing for the third party. I know for myself and for many students, we have so much on our backs, have to focus on so many different things. It's sometimes hard to know if there's another option, but we are all very dissatisfied with the two-party system. I'm just asking, is there a suggested plan of action in order to mobilize people to understand who the third party option is, if there's multiple, there's fourth parties, but just any way to kind of get out of the confines of the two-party system?
Councilwoman Brooks?
Sure, we have.
Give me 1 second because I made a mistake. Zoe, can you stand for a moment? Zoe, we were supposed to have another panelist and we got wrapped up in this and I completely forgot. Well, if you don't mind, executive director of FordUS, and I want to make sure you may even be able to answer part of this, contextualizing some of the important work you all are doing around immigration reform.
Thank you. It's been so nice to. It's been so nice to be here. I'll just say that I came today to talk a little bit about some of the work that we've been doing, particularly around justice reform and trying to pull on criminal justice reform, because if you believe sort of a lot of the punditry, they'll have you thinking that there was a big wave around justice and a big politicization around justice, and then now we're having this big backlash around voters caring about this other issue that is safety. And what we see in the polling time and again is that voters are smarter than that and have been informed by 4 decades of mass criminalization and mass incarceration, and 1 in 2 American families and 1 in 2 American adults that are going to vote tomorrow or have voted have experienced incarceration in their immediate families. And I was moved, and many others were, when Mr. Gillum, you talked about that when you were running for office. And so anyways, it's one example of one issue that is where we've been sort of forced into these binaries we've been talking about all evening, and forced into false choices, but really voters are looking for different solutions and know that they can have different solutions on this one and many others. So thanks for giving me the mic for a second.
Thank you for your work. Thank you.
So, okay, so being like what we do here for Working Families Party, we do national mobilizations. You can, and your other students can get online and do our, I think it's monthly calls with around mobilization. Local here in Pennsylvania, we have our office at 15th and Ridge. We do several events, mainly focusing on young people. We've been doing like young progressive folks meet up. I see some constant people in the room, so it makes me feel good that we're getting the work done. Our job is to make sure that you're connected to organizing tools right here in the city, whether it's issue-based work or it's just a political landscape. Working Families Party has something to you. I would encourage you to go to our website and tap in, and we can figure out exactly what it is that you want to do to get involved. Because for us, mobilization is a personal thing. Like, I'm not telling you what to do. It's you to come in and bring your own skill set to help us grow.
Thank you. We got one more
Your
question.
name and where you're from.
My name's Issa. I'm a student here, connected to the School of Social Work and Ideal. My question is, what would make a third party viable, and what about doing like a coalition with other parties that may have the same ideals, ultimately speaking, to, seek for the ultimate conclusion?
Thank you.
So, just a few things. We organize every single day in order to expand the conditions for a third party. And some of those things aren't going to happen overnight, but we're in the courts so that fusion voting, for example, which exists in Connecticut and New York, can be the law in more states, which allows third parties to have ballot access in a way that doesn't get into that whole spoiler dilemma problem. So that's number one. It's a legal fix that we're trying to spread to more states. Number two, we're a non-sectarian party interested in the interest of working people. And so our party is a coalition party. So we build with labor unions and grassroots organizations, and we're truly a grassroots democratic party. You all could know about the arguments that we have every single day on the local level about who do we endorse and what direction do we take and which piece of legislation on the state level or the local level we align with. So we're trying to demonstrate what that broad-based sort of coalition looks like, where we're bringing in immigration organizations and organizations that are led by people who are returning citizens, and organizations that are led by the LGBTQ community, and organizations that have a different position, on the environment. We bring all of those folks together through the Working Families Party to be the electoral expression of a very, very broad, diverse movement.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, Mo, I'm in trouble, Mo. We heard we got you in trouble. You supposed to go. Mo is on a tight time frame. We're so thankful for Working Families Party. Our partner here, Kendra and Nick, we're grateful. Zoe, I want to bring you up really quick to give us your prediction and close us out. We got to wrap up this show. Come up real quick. Who do you think is going to win tomorrow? And what are the Electoral College votes looking like? You go right there.
I have no idea. I am concerned, and I am extremely hopeful that we end up in a situation where we are able to organize the next president to do things like grant commutations, which we should also push President Biden to do in his lame duck, and that we are able to push the next president to, get the Sentencing Commission running and changing sentences. So I'm ready to move to policy, and I really hope that we're working with someone that will help us get there. I have my own personal ideas, but I'm nonpartisan professionally, so.
Thank you. And can we shout out the people who came from Jersey?
Yes.
Who came to see us. Thank you guys.
The Jersey folks.
Thank y'all for coming out.
Thank you all so much. We know that there are so many things pressing on your time. It is election eve. If you haven't voted already, please make sure you go and pull the lever like our dear brother Marc Lamont Hill tomorrow. I don't know which camera I'm looking at, but we are closing out this show.
This one.
Thanks, Nick,
Welcome
for all
home,
the
y'all.
direction you've given me.
Home.
Thanks.
And we don't mean to be rude, but we're going to run out of here.
We're literally about to run.
So
And
thank
so-
you guys
and he gotta
so
get the
much
baby.
for coming
Thanks,
out.
everybody.
There's one day until Election Day. Go vote, go vote, go vote. Welcome home, y'all.
Thank you for joining the natives. Intentional with the info on all of the latest. Gillum and Cross connected to the statements that you leave on our socials. Thank you sincerely for the patience. Reason for your choice is clear. We're so grateful. Took the oath to execute roles. Yeah, faithful. Preserve, defend, and protect the truth. Even if painful. Welcome home to all of the natives. We thank you.
Welcome home, y'all.
What's
Welcome
up,
home.
sis?